The International Newsnet World Report is a national television news show available in more than 30 million homes. We broadcast daily real news the networks won't tell you. We are solely viewer-supported. That means you. You can donate at our website, INNWorldReport.net. We hope you find the following interview informative and helpful.
ABC News reported last week further evidence that the Bush administration is actively engaged in a covert campaign aimed at regime change in Iran. This comes alongside increased diplomatic efforts aimed at Iran by U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. The threat of an attack on another sovereign state appears more remote. Hope is that we could soon be privatizing Iran's resources without dropping a single bomb. Well, not so fast. Steve Clemons at the New America Foundation now writes that a rift has formed within the administration on Iran policy, with Vice President Dick Cheney and company selling a plan around the Beltway advocating armed conflict in conjunction with Israel. Steve Clemons now joins us from Washington, D.C. to tell us the details. Welcome to INN, Steve.
Great to be with you.
Steve, could you first do a recap of the basic points of the article and get our viewers on board?
Absolutely. Just the quick synopsis is, about 2.5 weeks ago, I was given some information about a meeting that a senior Cheney national security advisor had given at a private consulting shop. And the quick outline was that Dick Cheney and his team are concerned that they're going to lose a policy battle with Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of Defense Bob Gates, other parts of the intelligence establishment, and that the president himself is tacking their direction, and that they will lose a battle over how to conduct U.S.-Iran policy. And the bottom line to it, people have long known Vice President Cheney's desire for a hot action against Iran and its nuclear program. But the big zinger in this is that this individual said that Cheney felt as if he couldn't count on the president's making the right choice, and that he had to tie the president's hands. And one way in which he's envisioned tying the president's hands is trying to nudge Israel to launch a low-level, small-scale attack in the overall attack of things with cruise missiles on the Natanz nuclear facility, and to try to hope to engender an Iranian attack on U.S. forces in the region, which would then very much tie the president to a very different course than the diplomatic course or the mix of diplomacy and military muscle that the president is deploying now. So it really is insubordination at minimum, and maybe something worse.
We've got right now a lot of military muscle in the Gulf. Surrounding Iran, doing exercises out, I believe, in the Straits of Hormuz. Are you saying then that Iran's retaliation would be against our forces, which are now stationed there?
Well, I'm not saying that will happen. What I'm saying is that Cheney and his team, at least according to the senior advisor, have spent the last 2 weeks trying to validate this information through other sources, and I have now, that what they are trying to trigger is an attack on U.S. forces in the region so that the president's latitude in what he can do is diminished. We have, as you said, the largest buildup of forces now, just as of 2 days ago, an enormous war exercise in the Straits of Hormuz. And what people are trying to do, I think, on both sides, and as I made clear in my article, the two people who most want to see conflict between Iran and the United States are Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Vice President Cheney, because this validates their positions politically. It builds support, whereas Ahmadinejad in Iran has seen his political support ebbing and beginning to really flag. These kinds of hot conflicts do a lot to move one forward. So, yes. So the answer is yes. The target is to try to get them to do it, but we ought to be careful of saying that the Iranians will automatically do it. I think it's very dangerous to go down that slope, which Cheney is doing.
I actually read a criticism of your article a little earlier today, which said that if somebody actually had a plan like this, they wouldn't be advertising it at almost public policy discussions around the Beltway. Has this made any sense to you that this information?
No, and I've had a good exchange with the person who wrote that, if it's Kevin Drum of Cal Pundit. He's a great writer. He posted it nonetheless, and I appreciated what he did. And in speculating why, I mean, it's a very interesting question, and I will put this out. I haven't said this publicly, and I haven't read it. I suspect that this aide of Cheney, and it's easy to figure out who it is. There are only like 2 or 3 people that are very close to Cheney, and one who's sort of known for this. But the real issue is denigrating Bush. I mean, I think that's something that we haven't seen before. I think that the dynamic at play here is trying not to lose my train of thought here on the points of question of why this person is doing it. One, there's a suspicion that I have that the consulting shop that the person was speaking to is one that this guy wants to move into, after he's with the administration. So the level of comfort he thought he had there was probably misplaced. I think the second thing is in the confirming slots that I was able to get, in terms of what he had done around town, they were all in places where he would have been around high-level neoconservatives, people around either neoconservatives or pugnacious nationalists of the John Bolton ilk. And this individual is very comfortable in that area and probably didn't think that anybody would be tattling on the outside. But that's what's happened.
In order for this to happen, you have to involve Israel, just like there's a lot of controversy here on people taking sides for and against possibility of armed conflict. There's also 2 sides within Israel itself. This deal would have to be struck with Israel. Do you have any more information on if people within the Israeli government have commented on it or if they're on board with the idea?
This is very important for people to understand. The vast majority of people in the Bush administration, I know people won't buy this, but also the vast majority of people in the Israeli government don't subscribe to this line of action. But those people who represent the vast majority don't necessarily set the tone or conduct or the policy direction for the government. Cheney's people populate the national security bureaucracy throughout the administration. There are very few other kind of mental templates out there. And in the Israeli side, you have, as you do in any other government, a lot of factions. And you have a hawkish faction, and you have a lot of other people that basically see many other dimensions to the equation here. I don't have anything more on this except for the fact that ever since I posted this, I've heard from a lot of my friends in the Israeli Foreign Ministry, people who used to be advisors to former Prime Minister Barak, former Defense Minister, current Defense Minister Amir Peretz, and others, and they validate the point that at various points, and they haven't commented on this in particular individual's conduct, but there have been various points where the U.S. government and the Bush administration has tried to get Israel to take action. And this came out in the Vinograd report recently analyzing Israel's encounter with Lebanon, in which it was very clear that Elliot Abrams had nudged the Israelis forward